Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a mini quiche idea that would be perfect for Easter or Mother's Day that's coming up. What I love about this recipe is you can make one base batter and then switch up the toppings. So you can have a whole variety of quiche to serve at your event. So the first thing we're going to do is make our crust. So in a food processor, we're going to add 2½ cups of all-purpose flour and ½ teaspoon of salt. You can pulse that up until everything is combined, and then we're going to add the butter. So you're going to be using 1 cup of unsalted butter that's very cold, and you want to make sure that you dice it into little small cubes. So you want to pulse up the butter and the flour just until you get a coarse meal. Then you need to have some really cold ice water that we're going to mix with some egg yolks. And the best way to do that is to measure out a 1/4 cup of water, throw in some ice cubes, and then in a different Pyrex pitcher, crack in 2 egg yolks, and then pour in the water, straining out the ice. So you just want the cold water. Then whisk that together, and then with your machine pulsing, slowly add the egg yolk mixture. And this part takes a little bit longer than you think. You have to just keep pulsing until you get a dough ball on your hands. So if you stop too soon, your dough will not be well incorporated with the fat and the flour. So you really want to take it as far as getting a nice dough ball. Then you can remove the dough and put it on a well-floured surface. Press it into a disc and then wrap it up in some wax paper and pop it in the refrigerator. You want to refrigerate it at least a minimum of 2 hours, but overnight is great too. Then once your dough is ready, you can roll it out to a 1/4 inch thickness. And then I'm using these mini tart tins with removable bottoms, which make it super simple to remove the quiche once it's baked. I'll leave you a link in the description where you can find them online, but you could also take this recipe and put it in a large deep dish quiche pan as well, if you wanted to make one. Then I like to flip the tin upside down and draw a circle with my knife about 1 inch farther than I need, because we're going to press this dough into the tin, so you need to have a little excess. And then you can just kind of push off the excess, and that will kind of cut the perimeter and give you a nice edge. And then you want to go in there with your knife and just clean it up a bit. You can put it on a baking sheet and pop it in the freezer for 15 minutes. That will allow us to get our fillings ready. We also want that dough really, really cold when it hits the hot oven so that it doesn't shrink too much while the eggs are actually baking. What I love about these toppings is we only need to cook one of them, the leeks. Now, if you didn't want to cook any of them, you could swap out the leek and cheese for ham and cheese, and then you wouldn't need to cook anything. So it's only going to take 1 leek, and you're going to slice off the bottom, and using just the white parts, you can save the green parts for a soup stock, you're going to slice thin little circles. And once you get those all cut, we're going to put them in a skillet with about 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and then just saute them until they're nice and fragrant and they begin to get a little bit crispy. And then you can season lightly with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then you can just set those aside. And then the other thing I like to do is mix up the egg base at this part. So in a 4-cup Pyrex pitcher, you're going to crack in 8 eggs and give those a whisk. And then we're also going to add a cup of heavy cream, and then you can season to taste with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then my other little secret that I like to do with these is add a little bit of cornstarch in the bottom of each tart tin. This will create a barrier between the crust and the egg so that as the egg is sitting there in the oven before it actually cooks, it doesn't make a soggy crust. Because these are so little, they're hard to kind of blind bake, and you guys know me, I'm not a big fan of blind baking. Anyway, so any way I can help preventing from doing that, I'm all for it. And the best way to do it really is with a pastry brush. Go ahead and give it a dust on the bottom and the sides, and that will do the trick. So I end up doing 2 of each kind, but you could do 3 of each kind. You could pick 1 topping and do them all. It's really up to you. So let's do the leek and the Swiss. So we're going to put down our Swiss cheese. Then we are going to fill the quiche. So I like to do the filling first and put the toppings on top. That way you really see the toppings once the quiche is baked. And my favorite way to fill a mini quiche like this is not to take the full Pyrex pitcher and start to pour it in, because it will go everywhere. I speak from experience. The better thing to do is to use a turkey baster. They really come in handy for this type of thing, and it works perfectly. So you're going to fill your turkey baster, and then you'll see it'll suck up a whole bunch of batter, and then you can place it in the mini quiche, and it usually takes about 2 goes with the turkey baster, and that will get it to about 3/4 of the way full, which is perfect, because eggs do have a tendency of really rising when they're in the oven. Then once that's done, then you can add your leeks on top and see how pretty that is, and they'll bake into the quiche that way. And it'll be easier to tell too which kind is which, because you'll be able to see the toppings. Then for our salmon and goat cheese and dill quiche, we're going to add some crumbled goat cheese in the bottom of the tin. Then we're going to fill up our quiche to 3/4 of the way. Then you can add some shredded smoked salmon and a little bit of minced dill. There, now we've got that one done. For the third one, we're gonna do spinach and feta, so you can put your feta cheese in. Now for these, I really like to use the frozen spinach, but I would recommend thawing it first. Otherwise, if you put it in frozen, it will really cool down that egg, and then this topping will take longer to bake than the other topping. And then for a little finishing touch on these, I like to add a little Italian flat leaf parsley. Okay, third one done. Now for the last one, we're gonna do a tomato pesto and mozzarella. So we can put our mozzarella cheese in first, fill up the quiche, and then for the pesto, you can take maybe 3 little dollops, put it in the egg, and swirl it around with a fork, and that will distribute it and create kind of a nice swirl. And then for the tomatoes, I like to use cherry tomatoes. You can slice them into little wheels and then put 4 or 5 floating around in the quiche. It looks really pretty. And then I also like to roll up a fresh basil leaf and give it a chiffonade so you have really thin pieces, and then sprinkle that all over the top. There, see how easy that was? We have our 4 different types of quiche, and they're all gonna bake at the same time. And you're gonna put it in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're gonna go for 30 minutes at this temperature. What will happen is you'll start to see that the quiche start to rise up, they dome a little bit. Once they're cooled, they'll actually settle down and they'll be flat. But then at that point, I like to increase the heat to 375 and go for another 5 to 7 minutes just to allow the crust to become nice and golden brown. Then once they're done, you can remove them from the oven, allow them to cool. So they really do need to be cooled in order to remove them from the tin, because they can be really hard to remove from the tin when the tin is hot. So let them cool, then remove them and put them on another baking sheet, and then cover loosely with foil. And I say loosely just so that that crust doesn't begin to get too soggy with the condensation if they're still a little bit warm. And then when it comes time to serve, all you're gonna do is pop them back in a 350 degree Fahrenheit oven for about 15 minutes without the foil. And then to serve, I like to put them across 2 different plates for a buffet. You can put some little greenery in the center. You could use watercress, microgreens, or fresh parsley. And then I like to put 1 of each kind on each plate. Now, if you would like some more recipes to fill out your Easter brunch, you can click this annotation, and that will take you to a playlist of my top 10 Easter brunch recipes. I'll see you over there. Bye.